Welcome to TJ's Bedtime Stories. Relax and enjoy. And don't forget to subscribe.
The shadow people in my house. I've seen spirits everywhere I've lived, but I've never, ever seen spirits like this. This took place in 2016 in Oklahoma City. I'm originally from California. I packed mine and my child's bags and moved out to Oklahoma City to live with her dad, who had moved out there to be closer with his mother. I had no family or friends that lived out there, so it was a huge change in my life. I was willing to give things a try, though, for Jennifer's father. Oklahoma was one of the most beautiful states I've ever seen. It was refreshing to finally get there. The trip took 3 days and 2 motel visits. When we got into OKC, Jennifer had her face against the window, looking at the new city we would be living in. It was a nice feeling being in such a family-friendly city and seeing my little girl looking so happy. The house was a small 2-bedroom and was perfect for us. Now, I usually know if there's any paranormal activity in a house. Like, I feel it in my bones as soon as I enter the doorway. If you know, you know. Well, when we moved in with my husband, I didn't feel anything at all. I was actually relieved that I had finally found a house that was spirit-free. Jennifer at the time was 4 years old. She wasn't in school yet, but I made friends with a single mother that lived a couple doors down. She had a daughter about Jenny's age, which was perfect because the kids would play together while my friend and I would drink coffee and talk in the kitchen. I was happy, like really happy, for the first time in years, and I felt like this would be the perfect place to raise Jennifer and maybe start selling my handmade candles I'd been dreaming of for years. One day, early into fall, at the breakfast table, Jennifer started talking about a guy named Robert. At first, I didn't really pay attention to her because I figured she was young and kids her age make up imaginary friends. At night, though, she started screaming her head off and crying out to me. I would jump up and run in her room, and when I would get in there, she would be in tears telling me that Robert was scaring her. I would have to lay with her until she fell asleep. This happened on and off for probably a few weeks, and I had convinced myself it was a recurring nightmare, although in the back of my head, I feared that my paranormal past had once again followed me like an angry stalker. There was one time when I actually fell asleep in Jenny's bedroom with her and had an extremely vivid dream. I saw a huge, looming black shadow standing just outside the doorway to her room, and I heard it telling me who I was and what I was doing in there, and that I didn't have permission to be in my own daughter's room. I was livid. I answered it and told it, "I have every right to be in here. This is my child's room." I started to ask Jennifer about Robert, because after that dream, I started to think that Robert had malicious intentions. I asked her who Robert was, and she told me that he sometimes came out of her closet at night. She told me that Robert was nice, and that he is always telling her not to be afraid of him, that he wasn't there to hurt, but to protect her. I asked what he looked like, and she said that he was a white man that was bald, and his clothes were very dirty. Jennifer telling me that Robert was there to protect her was confusing, though. Why would she scream for me in the middle of the night, saying that Robert was scaring her? The incidents continued almost every single night, so I told my husband I didn't want our daughter sleeping in there because she was having nightmares. He said, "She's a little kid. She probably watches TV when my scary movies are on." So my poor child had to sleep in that room. Every morning, I would wake up at 4 to make my husband's lunch before he'd go to work for the day. The morning after that conversation, I decided to stay awake and take a shower after he left. I was rinsing shampoo out of my hair, and I clearly heard a male and female loudly arguing outside the door. I was so scared and spooked that I immediately turned the water off and stood there in the shower, trembling, listening to who the hell was in my house. But it was dead quiet, just the faucet dripping on the drain. After about a minute, I turned the water back on, and again, not even 10 seconds later, I heard the arguing again. I turned the shower off and headed straight for the door to the hallway, only thinking about Jenny's safety. I swung the door open and whipped my head out looking around. Nothing, I thought. Okay, of course no one is in my house. I have to be hearing things. I have to be. Because my husband had to be at work at 5:30 a.m., there were times I would stay up and times I would go back to sleep. One early morning, I would go back to sleep and found myself lying in bed, tossing and turning for a while. I must have finally fallen asleep because I instantly woke up, my heart thumping in my chest. I heard our front door open and close. Then I heard footsteps in the hallway, leading to our bedroom door. It's just my husband forgetting something, I thought to myself, and I'm ready to hear him come through the door, but instead I hear a man and woman talking right outside the damn door. I was so scared because my initial reaction was that we were being robbed. These people waited for my husband to leave to come inside, and poor Jennifer is right across the hallway. I was so terrified that I just stayed still, not even breathing, because I did not want them to know I was in the room. Then everything went dead silent. I sat there for probably 10 minutes in quiet darkness. I finally convinced myself this was related to what I had heard in the shower before, but I still tiptoed to the door and slowly cracked it open. Nothing. With tears running down my face, I quickly went into Jenny's room and fell asleep, looking at her sweet face, wishing I could escape this living nightmare. By spring of 2017, my husband and I divorced, and me and Jenny moved back to California, closer to my family, in a small apartment outside of Oakland. I've been to therapy, and so has my daughter. I'm more in tune with my spirituality now. I've started selling candles on Etsy, and I've gone back to school to finish my nursing degree. I have a much more positive outlook on life, and I've come to realize that I was letting a lot of negativity into my life through relationships and not believing in myself. Things are a lot better now. Jenny is in grade school. I'm a nurse at a local physician's office, and I haven't had any more paranormal things happen. But I'll never forget what happened, and every once in a while, when it feels just a little off at night, I sleep with the lights on